This is Roger Stone. The holidays are here, and it's the time of year when travel, crowds, and cold weather mean one thing. Everybody's getting sick. And in moments like this, you don't want to rely on the bureaucracy, the nonsense, or the slow-moving medical machine. You want control. You want to be prepared. You want options. That's why I want to tell you about All Family Pharmacy, a company that actually puts you in charge of your health. You can go to allfamilypharmacy.com/stone, place your order online, and a licensed physician reviews it. Once approved, your medication ships directly to your doorstep. Fast, private, and secure. So whether you're looking for ivermectin, antibiotics, or everyday maintenance medications, All Family Pharmacy now has you covered. No waiting rooms, no runaround, no interference. This holiday season, don't gamble with your health or your family's health. Stay prepared, stay protected, stay in control. Visit allfamilypharmacy.com/stone and now save 10% with code STONE10. Take charge of your health because nobody cares about your freedom more than you do.
From writer-director Ryan Johnson.
The Holy Grail. A perfectly impossible crime.
Wake Up Dead Man has critics singing its praises.
God help me. Anything else?
It's a deliciously entertaining mystery.
That's nice.
It's certified fresh.
It's a miracle.
Okay, you're freaking me out now.
It's the best Knives Out movie yet.
This case is solvable, right?
Oh, you'll see. It's fun.
Wake Up Dead Man, a Knives Out mystery starring Daniel Craig. Now playing on Netflix.
The Stone Zone. Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
You are now entering the Stone Zone, and buckle your seatbelts. Well, Washington has been rocked by some 95,000 photographs released by the House committee investigating Jeffrey Epstein. These photographs were evidently supplied by the Epstein family estate. Among those depicted in the photographs with Epstein are President Donald Trump, former President Bill Clinton, former Senate Majority Leader George Mitchell, former U.S. Treasury Secretary Larry Summers, comedian Woody Allen, and to the surprise of some, but not me, Steve Bannon. Now, I've said right here in the Stone Zone, I have my own beef with Bannon. You see, Bannon testified before the House Intelligence Committee investigating the Russian collusion hoax about the same time that I did. And when Bannon was asked point blank whether he'd ever discussed WikiLeaks, Julian Assange, or the allegedly stolen emails that were allegedly hacked from the DNC with me, he said, and I quote, "No, never." You can imagine my surprise then when I was framed by special counsel Robert Mueller, and the surprise witness at my trial was none other than sloppy Steve Bannon. Bannon swept to the witness stand dressed all in black, kind of like a bloated Johnny Cash, would never look me directly in the eye, but when asked the exact same question, whether he'd ever spoken to me regarding Julian Assange, WikiLeaks, or these allegedly stolen emails, he said, yes, Stone had mentioned it in every phone conversation we had in 2016. He went on to say that he considered me the campaign's access point with WikiLeaks, which came as a terrific surprise to me. By the way, I had already passed 3 polygraph tests conducted by the same lie detector company utilized by the FBI and the Florida Department of Law Enforcement on that very question. So the fact that Steve Bannon was a backstabber does not come as a shock to me. But what was shocking to me was the extensive correspondence back and forth between Bannon and Jeffrey Epstein that took place after Epstein was convicted of sex crimes in Florida, but prior to his being charged as a child sex trafficker by the Trump Justice Department in 2019. It's very clear from the extent of the emails released only weeks ago that Epstein was working as a public relations advisor, advising Epstein on his efforts for public rehabilitation. In fact, Steve Bannon recorded almost 10 hours of video in an interview with Epstein, video that has never been released. Now, it should come as no surprise that in the context of those emails, Epstein offered Bannon the use of his exotic island and his Palm Beach home at any time, to which Bannon replied, and I quote, I want to get this exactly right, quote, "Thank you, brother." Really? Who refers to a convicted sex trafficker as a brother? Should come as no surprise to you that Bannon is now working for a Chinese AI company to advance their interests. I've called Steve Bannon out. I even challenged him to a bare knuckle fight under the bare knuckle fighting commission, and I'm waiting for his answer. Somehow I doubt that a man who eschews hot water and soap would be willing to step into the ring with me, where he would no doubt take a beating. Also in the news, President Donald Trump issued a pardon yesterday for Tina Peters. That may be a name that is not completely and totally understood by everyone listening to the Stone Zone. But for those who don't know, Tina Peters was the Mesa County clerk during the 2020 election. And Peters' crime is copying and retaining absolute proof that the vote count in her county was altered after an update by the Colorado Secretary of State. This is why Democrats in the state of Colorado charged her with a local crime and have kept her incarcerated, more recently in solitary confinement, while by all reports, her health is rapidly failing. President Donald Trump announced yesterday he granted a full federal pardon to Tina Peters, the former Mesa County clerk, whose grossly immoral and undeserved prosecution has made her a national symbol for election integrity nationwide. Trump has repeatedly referred to Peters as a political prisoner, arguing she was targeted for questioning election security, while Democrats ignore violent crime and real threats to public safety. Peters was convicted over allegations, again, tied to unauthorized access to election equipment in 2021, a case reflecting selective enforcement and complete and total political retaliation. This was meant to provide a chilling effect on anyone else who comes forward to demonstrate that there is widespread fraud in our elections. In a True Social post, President Trump said, "For years, Democrats ignored violent and vicious crimes of all shapes, sizes, colors, and types. Violent criminals who should have been locked up were allowed to attack again. Democrats were also far too happy to let in the worst from the worst countries so they could rip off American taxpayers. Democrats only think there is one crime, not voting for them. Instead of protecting Americans and their tax dollars, Democrats chose instead to prosecute anyone they can find that wanted safe and secure elections. Democrats have been relentless in the targeting of Tina Peters, a Gold Star mom and a patriot who simply wanted to make sure that our elections were fair and honest. Tina is sitting in a Colorado prison for the crime of demanding honest elections. Today, I am granting Tina a full pardon for her attempts to expose voter fraud in the rigged 2020 presidential election. Now, the pardon follows direct appeals from Peters' legal team, who urged the president to intervene similarly to how he pardoned the January 6 patriots, the individuals who were ensnared in the so-called fake elector scandal, and many others as part of the no MAGA left behind ethos of the Trump administration. Here is the issue, however. A federal pardon cannot release one from incarceration when they're convicted on state crimes. And therefore, I have suggested, as has the Assistant Attorney General Ed Martin, that the Trump administration charged the governor of Colorado, they have more than enough evidence now of election fraud, and declare Tina Peters to be a federal witness. Therefore, under the supremacy clause of the U.S. Constitution, Tina Peters could be extracted from that Colorado prison. That, in my opinion, is the fastest and easiest way to leading to her release. Meanwhile, Indiana Republicans spit in the face of President Donald Trump this week after the state Senate voted down a proposed new congressional map that could have strengthened the Republican Party's position heading into the 2026 midterm elections. The chamber rejected a map 31-19 halting an effort that would have flipped 2 additional House seats into Republican hands and bolstered the rather thin Republican majority in Washington. The failed vote comes as President Trump and his allies have urged Republican-controlled states to redraw congressional lines ahead of the midterms, arguing that Democrats have long exploited redistricting and gerrymandered their states to lock in power. Of this news, Trump-aligned political strategist Alex Brusovitz, a friend of mine, said, "The spineless rhinos in Indiana, many hailing from districts where President Trump won by over 20% just last November, have stabbed their own voters in the back and sold out America. We'll be launching primary challenges against every last traitor who voted no, effectively immediately. They can pack your bags. Your time is up." As I said on X yesterday, the Republican Party of Indiana needs an enema, and I know exactly where to stick the nozzle. Turning Point Action is also expected to be active in these races, making sure that Republicans who failed to redistrict are primaried out of office next year. While Republican-led states like Texas are moving forward with aggressive map changes, Indiana lawmakers showed reluctance, with several Republicans publicly questioning both the timing and the political wisdom of the redraw. These Republicans are the ones who we question are really conservatives. They really should be driven from politics and replaced with America First lawmakers. States like Florida and Texas, where the population have grown, have moved to redistrict. Where Democrats have already gerrymandered in states like California, New York, and others, Illinois, and there are no new states to be gained. The loser mentality continues to stain Republican politics, in my opinion, must be removed. Our country has too much at stake in the next off-year elections to tolerate this kind of weakness. A chilling lawsuit filed this week has implicated ChatGPT, that's the artificial intelligence app, for its alleged role in yet another needless death, this time a brutal murder. The estate of Suzanne Eberson Adams, an 81 Connecticut mother, allegedly murdered by her son, is accusing OpenAI and its founder, Sam Altman, of wrongful death, claiming that his ChatGPT app fueled the delusions that led to this senseless killing. According to the lawsuit, Adams was beaten and strangled by her 56-year-old son, Stein Eric Solberg, inside their Greenwich, Connecticut home before he then tragically took his own life. Court filings allege that Solberg, a former tech executive who suffered a serious mental breakdown, became obsessed with ChatGPT, personifying the chatbot and relying on it to validate increasingly paranoid beliefs about his own mother. Rather than grounding him in reality, the lawsuit claims that artificial intelligence reinforced his delusions, encouraging a fantasy of hidden conspiracies and spiritual awakenings. In documented exchanges, ChatGPT allegedly affirmed Solberg's belief that everyday objects were part of a sinister plot and that he was uncovering some cosmic truth. When a domestic dispute erupted over a printer he believed was spying on him, the suit alleged that the AI went further, reinforcing the idea that his elderly mother posed a deadly threat to him. The family, said Adams, paid with her life because there were no safeguards, no off switches, and no accountability with this ChatGPT app. Recently, there have been a string of teen suicides that occurred after the troubled youngsters confided in this online app where they received advice on the best way to end their own lives. These are real-life science fiction scenarios unfurling themselves on a daily basis. Welcome to the Twilight Zone, folks. At the bare minimum, you need to keep your children off these AI apps and digital platforms. And at a maximum, you must monitor their use of them carefully. This is Roger Stone. You're listening to the Stone Zone. When we come back, we'll talk about the Trump administration as they prepare the largest tax refund checks ever given back to the American people in U.S. history. I'm Roger Stone. You're listening to the Stone Zone right here on the Red Apple Audio Networks. Don't go away. This is Roger Stone. The holidays are here, and it's the time of year when travel, crowds, and cold weather mean one thing. Everybody's getting sick. And in moments like this, you don't want to rely on the bureaucracy, the nonsense, or the slow-moving medical machine. You want control. You want to be prepared. You want options. That's why I want to tell you about All Family Pharmacy, a company that actually puts you in charge of your health. You can go to allfamilypharmacy.com/stone, place your order online, and a licensed physician reviews it. Once approved, your medication ships directly to your doorstep. Fast, private, and secure. So whether you're looking for ivermectin, antibiotics, or everyday maintenance medications, All Family Pharmacy now has you covered. No waiting rooms, no runaround, no interference. This holiday season, don't gamble with your health or your family's health. Stay prepared, stay protected, stay in control. Visit allfamilypharmacy.com/stone and now save 10% with code STONE10. Take charge of your health because nobody cares about your freedom more than you do.
Say hello to the all-new Alexa Plus and see how Alexa can do so much more for you. Need tickets to see your favorite artist? Craving your comfort restaurant? Just sit back, relax, and talk naturally. Alexa's on it. It learns your style, anticipates what's next, and makes it happen across Echo, Fire TV, and more. Learn more at amazon.com/new Alexa.
Running a business comes with a lot of what-ifs. But luckily, there's a simple answer to them. Shopify. It's the commerce platform behind millions of businesses, including Thrive Cosmetics and Momofuku, and it'll help you with everything you need. From website design and marketing to boosting sales and expanding operations, Shopify can get the job done and make your dream a reality. Turn those what-ifs into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
This podcast is brought to you by Carvana. Carvana lets you buy your next car on your terms. Explore a massive inventory online, filter for what matters, and find your perfect match. Then choose delivery to your home or pick it up at one of Carvana's iconic car vending machines. Every car also comes with a 7-day money-back guarantee, so you can make sure it's the right fit. Buy your car on Carvana. Delivery or pickup fees may apply. Limitations and exclusions may apply. See our 7-day return policy at Carvana.com.
Carvana.
The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
And we're back in the Stone Zone. It is the season, and coming December 20th, it's home for the holidays with Mr. Christmas himself, Vinny Madugno, live from Studio 77 right here in New York City. Get ready to slay your night away with live performances, ugly Christmas sweaters, and jolly friends. If you love live entertainment, Vinny Madugno is an incredibly dynamic performer. It's Mr. Christmas himself, singing all your holiday favorites live in concert, December 20th at the WABC studios. So for more information and tickets, go to homefortheholidays2025.com. That's right. If you want to see Mr. Christmas, Vinny Madugno, live in concert from the WABC headquarters in Studio 77, go to homefortheholidays2025. That's homefortheholidays2025.com to get your tickets today. Americans will soon see meaningful relief at tax time, according to White House Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who says that new Republican-backed tax cuts will deliver, quote, very large refund checks early next year. Speaking in Pennsylvania, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent projected between $100 billion and $150 billion in total refunds directly to the taxpayers. That's roughly $1,000 to $2,000 per household, stemming from provisions in the Big Beautiful Bill passed last July. Because most workers have not yet adjusted their tax withholdings, Besson explained, the benefits will arrive as refunds in the first quarter of next year. After that, workers are expected to see higher take-home pay as less tax is withheld from each paycheck, creating a real increase in wages. White House National Economic Council Director Kevin Hassett echoed Secretary Bessent's optimism, estimating that tax cuts of between $1,600 and $2,000 for typical American workers, especially those benefiting from the bill's elimination of taxes on tips and overtime. President Donald Trump highlighted those gains during his recent rally speech in Pennsylvania, pointing to job growth, increased domestic energy production, rapidly falling gas prices, and easing costs for essentials like rent and dairy. The administration has also floated the idea of a $2,000 payment to low and middle income workers funded by tariff revenues. Those are the kind of outside the box ideas necessary to show the American people how President Trump's economic policies are actually helping the working families of America before the upcoming midterms. Money talks, and it will talk louder than all the fake news media spin when it arrives in the hands of Americans. The truth is, prices are down. Grocery prices are specifically down. Gas prices are down. Rent prices are down. But the truth is, they're not down low enough. In fact, they're not down as low as they were in the final year of Donald Trump's presidency in his first term. President, I can assure you, is well aware of that, and the best is yet to come. I'm Roger Stone. You're listening to the Stone Zone. Don't go away, because we'll be right back.
The Lincoln Wishlist sales event is happening now. Here's what's on everyone's wish list. Enjoying holiday jingles with brilliant 3D audio that surrounds you? Check. Watching snow flurries through the panoramic Vista roof? Check. Packing up presents with the spacious Lincoln Splitgate? Check. Everything you want. All standard on the 2025 Lincoln Navigator SUV. Visit your local Lincoln retailer or learn more at Lincoln.com for exceptional offers on 2025 Lincoln vehicles today.
Everyone wants the Emirates NBA Cup.
And things are heating up.
30 teams started. Bang! But only 8 have advanced to the single elimination knockout rounds. To survive, they'll have to be hungry, relentless, ruthless.
Are you kidding me?
They all want the cup, but only one team can claim it. Who will capture the cup? Emirates NBA Cup semifinals, Saturday on Prime.
Okay, only 10 more presents to wrap. You're almost at the finish line. But first... there, the last one. Enjoy a Coca-Cola for a pause that refreshes.
This is Charlie. He's my part rescue dog, part whirlwind. Half of his breakfast always ends up on the floor. And he leaves fur everywhere. That's why I grabbed the Bissell Power Clean Fur Finder. It's cordless, powerful, and actually finds fur you don't even see. If you've got a pet like Charlie, you've got fur everywhere. The Power Clean Fur Finder gets that. Discover how Power Clean Fur Finder makes pet cleanups effortless at Bissell.com.
The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
You are now re-entering the Stone Zone, and I'm your genial host, Roger Stone. Well, if you've been listening to the Stone Zone for a while, you know I have been predicting for many months that President Donald Trump would finally move to reclassify cannabis, that's marijuana, under federal law, rescheduling it from being a Class 1 drug to the far less restrictive Schedule 3 category. And now it is confirmed President Trump's preparing to issue an executive order that would reclassify marijuana under federal law. I think this is a common sense move that reflects the current public attitudes on marijuana. After all, 38 of the 50 states now offer either legal medicinal marijuana or, in some cases, recreational marijuana. I myself became a convert to this cause back in the 90s when my father was dying of cancer. I watched him wasting away as he had no appetite. I also saw him even sicker based on OxyContin, which they gave him for his horrific pain. A friend suggested that marijuana could both increase his appetite and ease his pain, and my sisters and I decided to get him some reefer to smoke. It was, of course, illegal in New York State at that time, but we did it nonetheless. I can honestly say that my father's dying days were far more peaceful and far less painful, and that he did, in fact, regain his appetite, begin gaining weight. That's when I became a convert to the cause of legalization. According to multiple reports now, President Trump's order will direct the federal agencies involved to move cannabis from Schedule 1, where it's currently categorized with heroin and LSD, to the far less restrictive Schedule 3 category. This could come as early as next week. Such a reclassification would ease punitive tax rules that have long hampered perfectly state legal cannabis businesses and open the door for banks to serve that industry without fear of federal penalties. The markets reacted quickly, with cannabis stocks jumping after the news broke. Analysts say the move signals regulatory normalization rather than any kind of full legalization, keeping federal oversight in place while acknowledging the changing realities across the states. President Trump has always said that cannabis was a states' rights issue, said it in 2016, said it again in 2020, maintained that position in 2024. President Trump previously stated his openness to rescheduling marijuana. That was as far back as August. Now, we here at the Stone Zone have urged President Trump to make this move, and I'm very happy that he's finally pulling the trigger. Marijuana prohibition was one of the biggest failures in U.S. history, mirroring the prohibition of alcohol. Marijuana was demonized because cannabis and hemp were threats to the entrenched business interests, particularly the interests of big pharma. When people use medicinal marijuana instead of opioids to ease their pain, big pharma can't make as many billions of dollars. Thus, cannabis had to be demonized. But the market has spoken, and President Trump is responding with the wise move of rescheduling cannabis, a position that will be popular with many hundreds of thousands in the American public. This news about marijuana reminds me of one of my favorite stories. In the late 1950s, the U.S. State Department made jazz legend Louis Armstrong a goodwill ambassador, and the U.S. State Department underwrote a concert tour of Europe and Asia for the jazz great. On his return from the first two tours, Armstrong and his entire entourage were waved through customs without a search of Satchmo's bag based on his ambassadorial status. But when he landed at Idlewild Airport, now JFK, in New York in 1958, he was directed towards the customs line. Customs agents had been tipped off that contraband was being imported into the country, and Armstrong joined a long line of travelers lined up for inspections. Unfortunately, the jazz trumpeter was carrying 3 pounds of high-quality marijuana in his suitcase. Once Armstrong realized he was about to be busted and would bring shame on the country he was traveling on behalf of, he began sweating profusely. It was just then that the doors swung open wide and Vice President Richard Nixon swept in with his security detail, followed by a gaggle of reporters and photographers. Nixon, seeing an opportunity for a wire photo with Armstrong, went up to the famous jazz man and said, "Satchmo, what are you doing here?" "Well, Pops," you see, Armstrong called everybody Pops, "I just came back from my Goodwill Ambassador's tour of Asia, and they told me I had to stand in line for customs." Without hesitation, Nixon grabbed both of Satchmo's suitcases. Ambassadors don't have to wait in line to go through customs, and the Vice President of the United States will gladly carry your bags to the curb for you, Nixon said, whereupon the Vice President of the United States, Richard Milhous Nixon, muled 3 pounds of pot through U.S. Customs without ever knowing it. When Nixon was told what happened later by his assistant Charles McWhorter, who served as a traveling aide to Nixon, who heard the tale from one of the jazz musicians who was traveling with Satchmo, a startled Nixon claimed, "Louis smokes marijuana?" Upon the jazz legend's death in 1971, President Nixon recognized Louis Armstrong's incomparable contribution to Americana and his creative individuality. One of the great architects of an American art form, a free and individual spirit, and an artist of worldwide fame, his great talents and magnificent spirit added richness and pleasure to all of our lives, President Nixon said. It's a great story. Meanwhile, NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte is telling NATO countries that they should be ready for a world war in order to stop the aggressive goals of Russian President Vladimir Putin. During a speech in Berlin on Thursday, the bureaucrat said, NATO's own defenses can hold for now, but with its economy dedicated to war, Russia could be ready to use military force against NATO within 5 years. How deterrence is achieved through retaliation, through preemptive strike, that is something we have to analyze deeply, because there could be in the future even more pressure on this. We must be prepared for a scale of war that our grandparents and our great-grandparents had to endure. This is all based, of course, on the false narrative regarding the Russia-Ukraine war. The idea that Vladimir Putin has territorial ambitions for all of Europe is, of course, nonsensical. The truth is that when the Russians agreed to the reunification of East and West Germany, the United States government, under President George H.W. Bush, agreed in a signed treaty, the Budapest Memorandum, not to push Ukraine, which borders Russia, into NATO. More precisely, committing not to put NATO missiles, funded by U.S. taxpayers, on the ground in Ukraine, pointed at Russia. In fact, the United States reaffirmed this in a second treaty, the Minsk Accords. So the push by the Biden administration to force Ukraine into NATO is a direct violation of these agreements by the U.S. government and a direct threat to the Russian nation. Why is this different than the Russians mounting missiles 90 miles from our shores in Cuba in 1962, which of course was vigorously objected to by President John F. Kennedy. It's no coincidence now that NATO is pushing out war propaganda and inflaming tensions with Russia at a time when President Trump is struggling in a major push for peace between Ukraine and Russia. It's become clear that NATO provoked the situation by encroaching closer and closer to Russian territory with its expansionist agenda, aided by the color revolution coup in Ukraine that put in a Western puppet aided by U.S. State Department intervention. They will do anything they can to sabotage the peace process and to create a sane world. We must no longer support NATO. I'm among those who believes that NATO has outlived its usefulness. It had a purpose immediately after World War II, when the economies of our European allies were decimated, but America's economy was still relatively strong. It was way back in 1988 when he first started talking about running for president that Donald Trump, the businessman, began pointing out that NATO was being paid almost solely by the United States and that virtually all of our European allies were deeply in arrears in terms of their dues. Why, he asked repeatedly, should we pay for the defense of Europe when they don't pay for their own defense? It's amazing to me that when he ran for president, finally, after looking at the race seriously in 2000 and 2012, but when he actually became a candidate in 2016, he reemerged with this exact same issue. In fact, our NATO allies coughed up $650 million in past due obligations to NATO because President Trump got tired of us shouldering the entire burden themselves. There's active legislation in the U.S. House that would formally remove the United States from NATO. I think it is a good idea. We should urge our Congress, men and women, to support this crucial bill as this rogue globalist organization has gone completely mad and is driving us to World War III. In the meantime, Volodymyr Zelensky has rejected the peace proposal put forward by President Donald Trump, but it is doubtful that he's even read the proposal. Zelensky is mired in his own scandal, in which one of his closest cronies is accused of stealing $100 million, which is a pittance compared to the hundreds of millions of dollars that have literally disappeared. Some of that, according to Elon Musk and my good friend Congressman Tim Burchett, has made its way back into the hands of U.S. lawmakers who voted for the war aid to begin with. Like all Americans, I'm praying for an end to this war. I remember during the debate for president when, I think it was on CNN, when Caitlin Collins asked President Trump whether he favored a victory by the Russians. What I favor, he said, is an end to the killing, to which I say, amen. Meanwhile, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker has signed legislation allowing euthanasia for terminally ill patients in a new, shameful milestone for the nationwide culture of death that's being imposed by Democrats on the United States. The law, known as Debs Law, takes effect in September of 2026 and permits doctors to prescribe lethal medication to qualifying adults diagnosed with terminal illnesses. Pritzker said, I have long been deeply impacted by the stories of Illinoisans or their loved ones who have suffered from a devastating terminal illness, and I've been moved by their dedication to standing up for freedom and choice at the end of life in the midst of personal heartbreak. Pritzker and his apologists for this measure frame it as medical aid in dying, but it clearly crosses a dangerous moral and ethical line. To qualify, patients must be deemed mentally competent, informed of alternatives like hospice care, and make multiple written and oral requests. But it will only be a matter of time before those restrictions are loosened and euthanasia becomes an industry, just like what we saw with abortions when they were first legalized. This law represents, to me, a troubling expansion of government-sanctioned death, shifting medicine away from healing and towards deciding whose lives are worth leaving. Remember the death panels that they said were to come after Obamacare was enacted? Well, this is evidence that they have arrived. Meanwhile, Washington state Democrats are pushing a pair of law enforcement proposals that expose a glaring double standard on secrecy and accountability. On the one hand, the Washington state Democrats are advancing legislation to expand the use of confidential driver's licenses and license plates for investigators in the state attorney's office. On the other hand, they're moving bills that would restrict anonymity for federal immigration agents and increase legal liability for officers who conceal their identities. These proposals would allow the Department of Licensing of the state of Washington to issue undercover IDs to Attorney General investigators working consumer protections, civil rights, and environmental cases. The Attorney General's office argues the tools are necessary to protect investigators from being publicly doxxed and harassed while conducting undercover work. Officials insist that the IDs will be limited in scope, tightly regulated, and not usable for financial transactions. But at the same time, they are insisting that ICE agents, those who are enforcing the laws to deport dangerous illegals, should not be allowed to mask themselves. A two-tiered system? You bet. I'm Roger Stone. You're listening to The Stone Zone, and we'll be right back.
This episode is brought to you by Blink. Doom scrolling during this ad break? Ditch the doom and get peace of mind with new Blink 2K Plus Smart Security. Check on home from your phone with 2K Clarity, noise cancellation, and 4x zoom. Plus, setup is so simple, you can easily install while listening to your favorite podcast. True crime girlies, we got you. Get more, spend less with Blink 2K Plus Smart Security.
This episode is brought to you by Marqeta. When it comes to your payments provider, you can't afford to compromise. Marqeta's modern payment solutions flex with your business without the trade-offs. Stable and agile, secure and innovative, scalable and configurable. If they say you can't have it all, don't believe them. Your business demands more. Choose a payments provider that delivers more. Choose Marqeta. Visit marqeta.com/Spotify to learn more.
REI Co-op presents a perfect outdoor moment with the perfect gift. Picture this. You're ripping with your favorite person. Bluebird skies, blower powder, and frankly, you're skiing like legends.
So sick. Another lap?
Thanks to REI's curation, from lid to sticks, you nailed the gift.
No way. How'd you know?
Does it get more perfect than that? Give without guessing. Shop in store or visit rei.com.
Rain-X wipers are the #1 wiper blades in America. That means all kinds of drivers choose Rain-X. Big drivers in small cars choose Rain-X. Small drivers in big cars choose Rain-X. Drivers with long hair and short commutes choose Rain-X. Drivers with short hair and long commutes choose Rain-X. Drivers with pets on board, babies on board, and bored babies on board choose Rain-X. Basically, drivers who love a clear view of the road all choose Rain-X wipers, the #1 wiper blades in America.
The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
And you're back in the Stone Zone. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration, also known as the FDA, has launched a safety review into potential links between COVID-19 vaccinations and deaths across all age groups. A long overdue move, in my opinion, after years of official dismissal and cover-up of vaccine injuries. The review follows a November 28th internal memo from Dr. Vinay Prasad, director of the FDA's Center for Biological Evaluation and Research, which concluded that the COVID-19 vaccinations were likely implicated in the deaths of at least 10 children. Prasad's memo examined 96 pediatric death reports submitted to the Federal Adverse Events Reporting System between 21 and 2024. Now, that system previously had a publicly available website, and if you could still see it, it's no longer posted, you will see that the federal government has paid out hundreds of millions of dollars for vaccination injuries. Today, that information is kept secret. Prasad criticized the FDA for never requiring manufacturers to prove through randomized trials that vaccinated children reduced hospitalization or death, calling the available data biased and completely incomplete. The memo also challenges widely promoted claims that the COVID-19 infection poses a greater risk of myocarditis, as well as arguing that many studies relied on flawed assumptions and ignored proper risk-benefit analysis for younger populations. This investigation confirms what many parents and physicians have warned about for years. Public health agencies were concerned with compelling people to submit with fear and maximizing pharmaceutical profits above all else throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. Prasad says the FDA will now move towards stricter evidence-based standards, a major shift after countless years of violating the public trust. This is another important step of what President Donald Trump and his Secretary of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy, call the effort to make America healthy again. You can't make this stuff up, folks. Canada's Liberal government is facing a fierce backlash now after voting to remove long-standing religious exemptions from the nation's hate speech laws, a move Conservative warns will chill free speech and threaten religious liberty, perhaps even criminalizing reading of the Holy Bible. The change was adopted during committee review of Bill C-9, the so-called Combating Hate Act, after pressure from Quebec's separatist bloc, which refused to support the bill without stripping away the exemption. For decades, Canada's criminal code explicitly protected good faith religion expression, shielding opinions based on sacred texts from being classified as hate propaganda. That safeguard was quietly deleted, despite objections from conservative lawmakers and concerns about the broader implications for the faith-based community. Conservative MP Andrew Lawton called the move a full-scale assault on religious freedom, prompting conservatives to filibuster the committee and delay further study of the bill. Bill C-9 still faces a third reading in Canada's House of Commons and must pass the Senate. So the fight is very far from over. But it just goes to show that these laws are not well-intentioned. Even if they are well-intentioned, they'll always be expanded and used to violate free speech and religious liberty, all in the name of free speech. Canada is already in a world of heat because we have our First Amendment. That makes it harder for hate speech laws to take root in America, but we must be exercising our rights, speaking out against any encroachment on the free speech right, and even defending our rights through the Second Amendment if that becomes necessary. The reason we have a Second Amendment is to make sure the First Amendment is always recognized. This is Roger Stone. Thanks for joining us today in the Stone Zone. Until we meet again, God bless you and Godspeed.
crazy about a shark dance man.
Thanks for listening to The Stone Zone with Roger Stone. You can hear The Stone Zone with Roger Stone weeknights at 8 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode, so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?
Take my word for it. I live there. Come to Florida. Get pre-approved right now with my guy Michael Kotze. Call him at 561-441-2730. He's got Choice Mortgage and a great real estate team. Get pre-approved right now. Michael Kotze, 561-441-2730. Buy in Florida right now. Don't wait. Save money on state taxes. Make your move today with Choice Mortgage. Trust me, Florida is waiting. This guy's so good, he did my commercials in Florida too. Mike Kotze, 561-441-2730. A ride.